Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. Zach Deane here with the one and only Chantelle. Chantelle and Hass, these guys are Bitcoin experts. They've been in the field for many, many years. And I'd love to, for those who don't know, Chantelle's my partner, and she's actually built an exchange for Bitcoin, to buy Bitcoin online, as well as doing other amazing, incredible things. I'm going to quickly do a quick interview. Here we go. Sorry, a quick little intro with Hass. So Hass, just for those who don't know, Hass is a civil engineer. He's actually studied his MBA at Oxford, and he's been researching and writing about Bitcoin for the last 7 years, specifically Bitcoin mining and energy use. The main reason he is so passionate about Bitcoin is because it's the potential for universal healing. And I'm like, what? Bitcoin has the potential for universal healing. How does this work? So we're going to dive deep into that, because Bitcoin has the ability to heal people physically, spiritually, environmentally, economically, and politically, globally, with what's going on in the world. So these are some big claims that we'd like to delve deep into. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And so I'm really excited. Thank you guys for joining us. And Hass, thank you so much for your time.
Oh no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I never miss an opportunity to talk about Bitcoin and its potential for healing. So I'm very excited. I know it's an extremely bold claim, but I'm hoping that within the hour we've got together, I'll be able to take you and your viewers along on the journey. Explain my logic, and then maybe even get them started on the path towards Bitcoin healing.
Yeah. I'd love to start off with a couple of things. And, I think one of the coolest things I found when I met you is that you are so passionate. You talk in simple, basic terms, but you're a bit of a genius really at explaining and dissecting what's complicated and making it really simple. And I really just enjoyed how, you were just genuinely wanting to help me understand what this was all about, and for no benefit whatsoever, just as the fact that you believe in it and you think it can really help the world. So thank you so much for what you're doing. And my question to you guys was like, what is a Bitcoiner? Like, how do I define you guys? And you called it something else?
Hodler.
A hodler. So what is a Bitcoiner and what is a hodler? Can you guys help us define this hat?
Yeah, so they're difficult. I suppose Bitcoiner is I'd say impossible to define. Every individual Bitcoiner will have their own definition of what it means to be a Bitcoiner, but to be a hodler means hodl is a big part of like Bitcoin folklore. So the first sighting of the hodl meme was a really drunk Bitcoin talk forums user posting a message that F it, I'm hodling. So price was roller coastering up and down, and he misspelt hold as hodl, and it sort of just caught on and became part of folklore. But what it also means fundamentally, hodl as opposed to hold, is the hodler is unfazed, and they hold on to their Bitcoin, and they just hold on to it in the face of pressure from their friend and family circle, in the face of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, published in the media. It's someone that holds on to their conviction and has the commitment and understanding to be able to tolerate the savage roller coaster that Bitcoin can be sometimes.
Yeah.
So happy to put a definition around hodler, but Bitcoiner will be a very individual and personal thing, to every unique Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
I like to call hodl as hold on for dear life.
Yeah. That it also does that also does work, and basically you have to hold on for dear life. because that's what Bitcoin does. It specializes in destroying individual psychology, if you let it. And that's why probably the best approach and mindset to approach Bitcoin is the healing mindset. So the healing, the charity, the impact mindset, because that's what I believe Bitcoin is at the extreme fundamental. We will have to dig to get to that fundamental point, but I'm confident we'll get there by the end of the show.
Interesting. Okay, so to hold on for dear life. Oh my gosh. So why are we talking about holding on for dear life? From my perception, looking in on I don't know, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I thought 6 months ago it was kind of not really something that I would do. It's a little bit kind of like it's too complicated, or you needed to be really smart in order to kind of benefit. So it was no interest to spend any time getting involved with it, but really looking into it and seeing the potential, and what you're talking about is worth the time and energy to do some research into it. So just from you guys, like, why are you guys so excited about Bitcoin? Like, why some people call it a religion, some people are so passionate about it. So what is it that's the most exciting thing for you guys?
For me, it's being able to have true ownership over what you have. Like, for example, right now in the current monetary system, you have fiat currency, which isn't backed by anything. It's completely devalued, and you actually don't have any ownership to it, because when it's in the bank, they can easily just take that away from you. Whereas for me, and because I grew up in a first world turned third world country, I saw what that could do, what money could do. And when I first found out about Bitcoin, it solved that problem. So, when I actually buy my Bitcoin, it's mine, sorry, and if there's a number one saying, like, again, if it's not your keys, it's not your Bitcoin. So as long as you always have your keys hidden safely and everything else, like, that's truly your value, and nobody can take that away from you. But that for me is what it is for me. It's a savior and that sort of thing. It stops governments from being able to control you in that aspect, or banks.
Okay, so it's bringing the power back to
Bringing power back to people.
Bringing the power back to people. Love it. That's what we're all about. That's totally, with health and wellness, I'm all about bringing the power back to us so that we don't have to rely on the system to be healthy for our friends and family. We can do it ourselves. And Hass, what excites you so much about Bitcoin?
Well, that's basically the exact same thing that basically nobody will ever be able to, like, financially bully me, or anyone else for that matter, like, ever again. And that is healing. So for the past, I don't know, 6,000 years, a lot of social social destruction has come about because of elites playing money games, causing societal ills, individual ills, as via poverty. It's an ugly word, money, and I know in healing circles, the word money is taboo everywhere, really. Like, it's just something that people don't like talking about. It has been made a taboo topic, and I'd say it's been made taboo intentionally, because the only thing really stopping us from commencing our healing process is the money printing juggernaut, which convinces us to buy cheap plastic from China, which we use once and then throw in landfill, only to be replaced by more plastic. Spend. The system only works if with inflation, and if we just keep manufacturing bullshit and ruining the environment, making people materialistic so they can buy and buy and buy. Otherwise, the diseased finance system will eventually succumb to the disease. The moment we turn our back on it and adopt something different. And I think that's where the Bitcoin fundamental kicks in.
Yeah, and the one thing I've always found, I don't know about you, House, is like a lot of people say like, oh no, but Bitcoin is that scam. Like there's a lot of scams that going around, but what they don't understand is like when they're buying Bitcoin, it's not Bitcoin itself that's the scams. Bitcoin actually prevents scams in terms of like when you're purchasing and you own it yourself. And if you have your keys, like I mentioned before, if you own your keys, it's your Bitcoin. But if you're going into a company and buying a certain coin, or even if it's Bitcoin and the exchange runs away with the Bitcoin because you don't hold on to those keys, it's not Bitcoin that's a scam. It's you didn't understand the full process or, you know, the fundamentals of Bitcoin. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. I don't know what you found in that, but I've definitely found when people don't understand the true concept of Bitcoin and understand the foundation of it all, then, you know, they end up going into these things and then media will end up portraying it as, oh, this is for drug dealers, this is a scam, XYZ.
So yeah, it's also something, yeah, on don't get me started on the media, but I'd say it's not just media. I'd say it's you know, all, you know, institutions colluding, you know, to make sure this diseased system like is not cured. Even from youth in our schooling, like the way we're taught to think is not conducive to understanding Bitcoin.
100%.
Bitcoin is actually so simple to understand that it's hard to understand. You sit and you try to learn it, you say, no, it can't be that simple. Like there's got to be something more complex, like to Bitcoin.
That's really
But at its fundamental levels, it's if you abstract away, you know, computer code and all that kind of like stuff, like Bitcoin is like dumb for dummies. There's nothing easier in the world than buying and holding and just forgetting about it. See, it's the easiest thing in the world. Just don't like look at the news or like watch the price.
Yeah.
So it's the easiest thing in the world. So let's break this down. Take us back to the beginning. Why was it created? And how do we help everyone understand how simple it is? Like, I'd love to know, because I think if there's something that can help us, we all want to know, right? I think everyone is very smart right now. We're understanding that the news is feeding us fake news. We understand that the, you know, medical system is not there to really help us. We understand that, you know, these systems that have been there, these structures are collapsing, and now we're looking for a different way. So I'm really excited to help plant some seeds for people and give them some resources and some things to kind of research themselves, because it's important to self-learn as well and keep doing your research. But how do you guys simplify Bitcoin? Take it back to the beginning.
All right, so taking it back to the beginning, there's the Bitcoin white paper was published in late 2008. Bitcoin.org/bitcoin.pdf for people that want to read the white paper. And basically the point of Bitcoin is all explained like in the abstract. And, you know, the first line of the white paper is effectively, I'm paraphrasing here, is we need a system of money that's out of the hands of the bankers. So Bitcoin was the Genesis block, launched in early January 2009. The first Bitcoin block that was mined had a message in it, which was the headline of that day's, I can't remember, it might have been the British Financial Times. And the headline was "Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks." And that is basically the genesis of Bitcoin. Like the bankers, like we're not getting bailouts. You know, no one ever looks at us. No one ever helps us. Why the bankers getting a bailout? So we need a system of peer-to-peer money where we can transact and save and interact and build economies and build communities without the need for a banker to extract 2% fees, you know, every time I want to, you know, work with you and send you money, and also to be protected from the banker printing us into poverty. So like a great example of this is, you know, somebody, you know, living in Sydney, let's say 10 years ago. Average price, for a 1 or 2 bedroom unit, would have been 600 grand, and the bank will tell you, you need a 10% deposit to buy this unit. You work hard and like you save everything you can for a solid 2 years, and you come up with 60 grand. And by the time you come up with a 60 grand, the property is worth 700 grand. And all of a sudden you don't have 10%, and the bank says, oh, by the way, we're not taking 10% deposits anymore. We need a 20% deposit off you now. So you go work your ass off, and you get pay rises, and you work for another 5 years, and you get together your 140 grand for your 20% deposit, and the unit's not 700 grand anymore, it's 800 grand now. So in the meantime, you're working your ass off, you're saving, you're doing the right thing, you're being responsible, and the banks are just printing money, and that money has to go somewhere, and it typically goes into assets, house, real estate, stocks. Like our assets inflate 15-20% a year, but because bread though only is growing 1% a year, the government tells us, oh, there's no inflation. It's only 1%.
I think like the perfect example for this is like Zimbabwe, and also I just had the name, Venezuela. I think at one point in Zimbabwe, there was a loaf of bread when you went to the shops, and it was $1 million, their currency at that time, like 1 million, because of the hyperinflation. Like nobody could afford to eat. It was just ridiculous. So they had to change over to US currency.
I've got some Zimbabwe paper. I've got a $10 trillion note and a $50 billion note, and it's just wild because it's like they're just 2 pieces of paper. One's pink, one's green. But the pink one, the 50 billion, I still need 2,000 of those notes to make one of those paper 10 trillions. So the scope of like the hyperinflation, it's incomprehensible to people like us living in Australia. Like we can't fathom the concept that like we might have to fill up a bucket of notes or a wheelbarrow of notes to like go down to the shops and like buy meat. So Bitcoin is the defense mechanism against all this, and it's a grassroots defense mechanism, and it is literally like an army. An army of 10 million people will be stronger than an army of 2,000 people. And as the Bitcoin army is growing, Bitcoin is growing in power. So for example, 10 years ago, Bitcoin was a $5 billion market cap that could easily be slapped around and, probably quite easily and practically crushed by a government. But now at $700 billion with a, reasonable army, it's estimated that there are, somewhere between 50 million to 100 million individual Bitcoin investors, just based on like signups on, Coinbase and Kraken, and I can't remember who it was that did a user analysis, but it's somewhere between 50 to 100 million people. And now it's gone past the point of being able to be crushed. The army is too big, and as the army like gets bigger and bigger, we might have a chance of crushing the legacy system and bringing back a good, organic, healthy money to underpin our economies and societies. And hopefully the World Economic Forum now is using a buzzword called the Great Reset. And look, I do agree with the concept that we need a reset. We definitely do need a reset. I 100% agree with the reset in principle, but for it to work and for us to start healing, post reset, we would need to be on a Bitcoin standard. Otherwise, we're just going to have the same, because everything is downstream from the economy. So, the economy flows down to culture, culture, flows down to politics, politics flows down, to our policy and how we live, basically. And since the economy as it currently stands now is just so rotten, it's it's time for it to go. But the funny thing is, a lot of people ask, all right, if we get rid of the central banks, like, what do we replace it with? All right, and, here's what I say: if you had cancer and like you called me to remove the cancer, like, would you want me to replace it with anything? No, you just want to cut the cancer out. Like, you don't need to replace the cancer. You just got to get rid of the cancer.
100%. It's so true. That's actually such a good analogy. Actually, I'm going to use that. Sure. But just like a little bit of a recap for everyone, what Bitcoin allows you to have. So it takes out that third party intermediary. And the second thing about it is there's not one sole owner of that currency or whatever it might be. Bitcoin is owned by nobody, but it's owned by everybody. So if you have Bitcoin, you're an owner of that Bitcoin. Nobody else owns that Bitcoin. It's just you own that.
And there's a limited amount, right?
There's only a little 21 million Bitcoin in the world.
Finite amount. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's and that's what makes it so fair.
Yeah.
So for example, let's say I was one of the lucky ones that was mining Bitcoin alongside Satoshi, and I was pulling down 50 every 10 minutes, and I'm sitting on 50,000 Bitcoins, and those 50,000 Bitcoins now are probably worth, like, I don't know, probably close to $1 billion or whatever it is. So let's say I had 50,000 Bitcoin, but I was also a billionaire in the old system with $1 billion. If I decide to gamble my Bitcoin and spend it, once it's spent forever. There is no way of me getting back to Bitcoin unless I buy it or work for it. Whereas with my $1 billion in the fiat world as a hedge fund, I can go make casino bets, lose all my money, and then expect to get a freshly printed payment of $1 billion in a bailout to shore up my stocks. And the disaster and the cancer continues. The ultra elite of the legacy system can gamble as much as they want. When they win, they keep all the takings, and when they lose, you and I have to cop the bill, and by extension our kids and grandkids, because it's typically public debt, which goes to pay bailouts. But on Bitcoin, if you lose your coins, there's as the old saying goes, sorry for your loss, or thank you for your donation.
Yeah.
Once Bitcoin is gone, it's gone forever, and you have to work, you have to produce something of value, to earn back, to justify somebody paying you Bitcoin. So the good thing about Bitcoin is that ideology applies to people that have 0.01 of a Bitcoin to people that have 100,000 Bitcoin. The rule applies to everyone in the exact same way. If you want to earn value, you have to provide value. Whereas in our current cancerous system, the system is not designed for us. If we gamble and lose, tough luck. There's a current, French Revolution happening on Wall Street at the moment. A bunch of Reddit kids short squeezing a big hedge fund. So I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but there's a company in America called GameStop. It's like EB Games. Share was worth like $4 last week. It's worth $200 now. Basically, the Wall Street bets on Reddit figured out that there was this big hedge fund shorting GameStop to the tune of 140% of the company. So I don't know how you can borrow 140% of a company to short sell it, but it's allowed in the legacy system. And the Redditors said, all right, everyone buy GameStop. We're gonna short squeeze this hedge fund. And they've cost this hedge fund something like $7 billion in the past 2 days, and they're about to go bankrupt.
That's absolutely insane.
So this is basically what Bitcoin is trying to do on a more macro level. Instead of trying to take down, a big cheating hedge fund, we're taking down the big stinking cheating temple. Like the whole thing, short squeeze the whole thing. So it's a long journey, but it'll be one of those things that happens very gradually and then just suddenly. So it's, we've been watching that, with Bitcoin. It's just been, it plots along, gradually does nothing, 2, 3, 4 years, and then whoop, rips, 100 times in price. Then it, crashes 70% or whatever, and then, dawdles along, 3, 4 years, gradually, and then suddenly, new wave, and this will probably, if it wasn't for the $10 trillion global governments printed last year, we would have seen like a very quick and sudden extinction of a lot of very big financial institutions. But yeah, like you could say the legacy system is steroid fed chicken, and Bitcoin is the grain fed or grass fed or free range.
Got it. Yeah, go for it.
So on this topic, so like now we've there's a few questions which we'll definitely ask Haas towards the end, so you guys understand like what mining is and stuff. But just quickly, Satoshi is the creator of Bitcoin. Nobody knows who it is, and then it ended up being a group of people that actually assisted to help build Bitcoin. And mining is to do with time chain, which is now called blockchain, which we can explain a little bit later. But now that you know a little bit more of the fundamentals of Bitcoin, I'd love for you to go into more detail now, Haas, around, you've got Bitcoin, and now you've got these things like Qcoin or coin. Then you've got, Tron and all these different Ripple. So what is
Ethereum?
Yeah.
Because there's
I don't even want to get started on Ethereum. But yeah, we can definitely go into
So that was really kind of the title of this talk as well, as Bitcoin versus crypto, and I didn't know that there was a difference. So what is this difference?
So here's the difference. Bitcoin is like healing and organic money. Everything else is just like a company. It's like a startup that's printing its own money to like printing its own shares to like sell you shares effectively. So like, Ethereum is like a smart contracts platform. But like Bitcoin is a lot dumber than that. Like it's just money. Like it is real. It's the only like real money. And by real money, what I mean is it can't be inflated by a central bank. If it's in your custody, it's yours. And like to the extent that nobody can take it away from you unless you consensually hand over the details. So if I find out you've got Bitcoin and I come and I put a gun to your head and I say, give me your Bitcoin, like if you don't and I kill you, I'm no better off. Like I still can't get your Bitcoins. Like you have to give them to me. So like you can't be confiscated, like you can't be like forced out of it. There will be people that literally die on the hill and say, you know what, yeah, kill me, like I'm not going to give you my Bitcoins, and if you kill me, like then sorry for both of our losses.
How does that work? So from my, like, what's the visual? I'm envisioning currency, money, gold in a bank somewhere,
Yep.
or digits on a computer screen that someone could hack online. That's the current system. But where is the Bitcoin held? What is like?
So the Bitcoin is held in the blockchain. So the Bitcoin exists in communication space. So not even necessarily the internet. If you have like ham radio and stuff like that, you can transact Bitcoin. You just need a communications link. So it exists on the blockchain, and it's all of your money. So the blockchain is basically the ledger that records the history of every single transaction that's ever happened on Bitcoin. Right now, that's about 350 gigs worth of data, and I have a Bitcoin node with a copy of the ledger, so I can verify.
We got to break this down.
So a node is basically just a software that gives you a portal into the blockchain. So having a node allows you to talk to the blockchain, ask it questions. So for example, you can ask the blockchain, how many Bitcoins are there like right now? And it'll answer, like it'll crunch some numbers and it'll say, as of, this block height, there are this many Bitcoins in circulation at the moment. So it allows you to talk to the network, audit the network, transact, and all of your, so let's say you can almost treat Bitcoin just like gold. So let's say I have like 10 gold coins on the blockchain. Each of these coins has an identifier, so that I can identify the coins. And outside of the blockchain, I hold a password to this coin. And the only way I can control or move or buy or sell this coin is just unlock it with my key, with my password. And that's it. So long as you can control your key, you control your Bitcoin, and no one can take that away from you. No one can hack your key, but your key can be phished, and that happens a lot. So Bitcoin as a system is unhackable based on like current computing technology. So even if you got all of the world's supercomputers combined, they'd have to guess 1 trillion passwords a second for 1 trillion years before they could hack your key. But there is a lot of phishing and social engineering. So for example, a big supplier of Bitcoin hardware wallets was recently had their customer database hacked. So no money was lost, no coins were lost, but email addresses were, and that was very important. And the hackers would send spam emails to this email list saying, your device is being compromised. Please click on this link, enter your private key to make sure like, your coins are safe. And, unsuspecting people would click the link, type in their private key, and then money's gone. Look, it happens all the time. Like phishing is, one of the main causes, of, hacks. So for example, there was a very big case of like, Apple iCloud was hacked. And there was all these nude photos of Hollywood starlets and all that kind of stuff. Like iCloud wasn't hacked. Like a couple of stars got their passwords phished or got their SIM cards swapped. So even Jack Dorsey got his SIM swapped this year, and there were tweets from Biden, Trump, who else? I think, did he hack? I think once Jack Dorsey was hacked, like the hacker had control of Twitter. And oddly enough, the tweets from Biden, Trump, and all those big celebrities were, send Bitcoin to this address. So yeah, that happened, might have been May last year, the Jack hack. So Jack got, the CEO of Twitter got SIM swapped. Like, it can happen. So, one of the hard elements of Bitcoin is, how to properly secure your private key, from theft. But it's a night and day difference now. Like key security and management is like in 2021, now super easy to do. 2014, we were still printing out pieces of paper. But now, there's hardware. There's something called multi-signature, which is extremely powerful. That's like when you see in the movies, the US president about to fire off the nukes, and he's got to bring in, the Secretary of Defense has got a key, president's got a key, vice president. So like you need, 5 keys to, do the nuke. You can do that with Bitcoin as well, like a 2 of 3 multi-signature, where you need 2 signatures to unlock your wallet. You keep one key with you, maybe one in a safe deposit box, maybe one at a relative's house or a friend's house, or whatever, and that splits your risk. There are companies that provide collaborative custody. Some are free services, some are paid services. So you hold 2 keys, and they hold one on your behalf, and you either pay a yearly fee for that, or in the case of a free service, if you ever need their help and calling on their key to bail you out because you've lost one of yours, they'll charge you $50, or whatever it is. So like Casa is a paid service, that's a paid upfront and collaborative and free bailouts. Whereas somebody like Unchained Capital, it's a completely free service, DIY service. But if you ever need a bailout, it's $50.
Yeah. Got it. And just like so everybody understands, when Haas is going into detail with like the key scenario. So I'm just going to say you have your post box, right? At the front of your post box, you have a number that everybody can see. That's your public key. So you can give that out to anyone for anyone to send you Bitcoin. So nobody can hack you from utilizing your public key. That's just for people to send into. But then you have your private key, and that's the key that opens up your letterbox. Now that's the key that you don't want to give to anybody. That's the one that you want to keep private and secure. And like Haas was saying before, you might get a multi-sig or utilize one of these third-party services to be able to assist you with that. So that's the difference between private and public key. And that's also where a lot of people get hacked or get confused, especially if you're new into the space. But yeah, so that's just for everybody to understand, that's what that is.
Yeah, pretty much just don't, if you have Bitcoin, don't let anyone know to begin with, and then keep, because if a Bitcoin's going to be worth $100,000 or people saying $1 million of Bitcoin, these are numbers that people might, want to do something crazy. So,
but still, let's say we had a big millionaire, high net worth individual, and I recommended to them to buy 1,000 Bitcoins. So 1,000 Bitcoins, 50 million Aussie or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's like.
So let's say the 1,000 Bitcoins became $1 million each, and that's $1 billion. You wouldn't even be in the top 2,000 billionaires in the world. Like no one's gonna come rob you.
No.
Like there are easier people to rob. So so on the contrary, I encourage people, like, don't say, oh yeah, I've got 100 Bitcoins, look at me or whatever. But like, I would encourage people to say, yeah, I'm a Bitcoin holder. And like, if you care about healing, not just your personal finances, you should, consider holding, organic, clean, money that, can't be used to enslave other people, can't be used to like rob other people. It can be used to enslave other people once, and then once the money's spent, that's it. So like evil can only be perpetrated for a very temporary time, and over the next, it's not going to happen overnight. It will take 100 to 200 years. You will end up seeing a really nice bell curve of wealth, where you have an extremely strong 68% of the population, very strong, prospering middle class. And then you've got the ultra rich tail, the ultra poor, tail. And one would hope that the ultra rich could prop up the ultra poor. Or, when you have the people that give the most charity actually in the world is the strong, prosperous middle class. Middle class people give a lot more charity in aggregate than the ultra wealthy. So I think in terms of, yearly charity given by individuals, not organizations. So, the $5 here and the $10 there, it stacks up to almost 400 billion US a year.
And this is one of the interesting things I like about this, is where it's helping redistribute the world's wealth to people like us right now. We're at home, we're watching this, and people are learning about it. And so just to kind of recap, it allows, so you were saying it's like gold, but it's invisible. It's backed up in what's called a ledger online that's connected through the internet. People have these things called nodes, which are like their own self-governing internet nodes. So if the internet goes down around the world, they have their own save. Is that how you describe?
It's like a saved ledger within it. So it's like a saved.
Yeah.
So it has all the transactions
Yeah,
on it.
but like you said, if the internet does go out around the world, there are Bitcoin satellites, and you can hook up via satellite. We hooked one up in the bush in Murrurundi. In November last year, we had a Bitcoiners Bush Bash, and we took the Blockstream satellite out with us, set it up, did some Bitcoin transactions, sent a message also like through the satellite, like commemorating the Bush Bash event. But the node is effectively your copy of the ledger, and it updates itself, every 10 minutes as the ledger updates.
Yeah.
And so there's these nodes that you can communicate in case the internet goes down. Like you guys have thought about all this stuff. It's fantastic because it's money and it's very important. And so then the next part is there's a finite amount. There's these things called miners. And so how does the mining work? Because apparently every 4 years, the value of the mining goes down. Is that right?
Yeah, so effectively, it was again, the intention was to get it to mimic sort of commodities. So 5,000 years ago, like gold was just like lying around. So mining it was just pick it up off the ground. Then all of the ground stock like was taken, and like it got a bit harder to get gold. Like you had to pan for it. And then like when the rivers like ran out of gold, you had to like, use your sluices and do like a sluice gate system and all that kind of stuff. And as you saw it, like the gold mining industry quickly evolved throughout the gold rush days, from panning to sluicing. Now you need to be BHP and have an open cut mine, and like it's very hard like to pull gold out of the ground. Like we only pull like 3,000 tons a year out of the ground. So as time goes on, gold becomes, more scarce and more difficult to pull out of the ground, especially as more and more people are competing to mine for gold, identical to Bitcoin. Lots of people competing with their computers to like dig up Bitcoin. The Bitcoin algorithm has been set up so that, gold is found every 10 minutes. If it's found quicker than 10 minutes, every 2 weeks, the difficulty adjusts to make sure like that Bitcoins only come out every 10 minutes. So no matter how much like the price increases, like the supply is fixed and its issuance is also effectively fixed. So every 10 minutes, back in 2009, there was a reward of 50 Bitcoins. Now, Bitcoin is also designed that every 4 years, this reward halves. So it went from 50 every 10 minutes to 25 every 10 minutes to 12 and a half. And now we are currently in the 6.25 era. So it halved recently in May. Then in another 4 years, it'll drop to, 3.125. Then in another 4 years, so on and so on and so on and so on. And in 2140 or 2136 now at this point, all 21 million will be mined. So currently there's about 18.5 million or so, 19 thereabouts that are mined, and they're coming out at 6.25 every 10 minutes. And we should have 90% of all Bitcoin mined, I think, by the end of this year. Then 95% will be mined like by 2025, 99% of them will be mined by 2040, and yeah, that last 1% will take 100 years to mine.
Just to recap on that, I love that explanation as well. So the way that you can, and House, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't explained this in like so long, but generally, so the blockchain is a record of ledgers. There's so many records that will happen within a block. So then every 10 minutes, these computers are like fighting to find the answer to the mathematical equation to secure that block. When they secure that block, it means that all of those transactions are true, but everybody along that block, all of these computers have to agree that these transactions are true. So that allows no fraudulent activity to happen through that, or a double spend. You know, like when you have a gym membership and sometimes they might take the payment out twice. That could never ever happen within Bitcoin. It just wouldn't happen. So therefore it secures the block, and that one miner or computer which has figured out that equation then gets the reward from the blockchain or the Bitcoin. So then they will get that Bitcoin.
Not just that, figured out the equation at tremendous expense.
Yeah.
So a Bitcoin now is like 30 grand US or whatever it is. Like that's how much it costs to mine a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
A bit less now because the price has like ripped dramatically as of recent times. But in slow times of equilibrium, the price of Bitcoin probably only like 10% more than the cost to mine it. Because a miner always has like a decision he has to take every day.
Yeah.
Do I buy Bitcoin or do I mine Bitcoin? So if he says, all right, if it's cheaper for me to mine, I'll mine today. If it's cheaper for me to buy, I'll just, buy today. But that's in those times of like when it does nothing for 2 years and it's just a nice equilibrium. It becomes very similar to like a traditional commodities market, where if an ounce of gold is $1,800, BHP is pulling it out of the ground, for 1,400.
100%.
Wow.
So it's very, very, very similar to like traditional commodities, like almost identical, except that traditional commodities are also like quite heavily manipulated.
So that's really interesting. It takes us down a bit of a rabbit hole there, because I think about wealthy people, rich people. They probably have investments and shares or property or gold and silver. So we're looking at I guess having Bitcoin. It's buying a piece of real estate that's going to go up in value, or it's buying a nice piece of artwork that's going to go up in value or down in value, or it's like buying gold and silver. But when you look at gold and silver, there's a lot of, I guess, damage to the environment. Like what a time, you were mentioning the other day, if people actually used gold for good, we could actually create a more sustainable world by wiring. You're saying one little block of gold can create so tiny a piece of wiring that can go around the planet that would be more effective for our electricity and stuff like this. So can you help educate us on that? Because I feel like if we were kind of educated on the negatives of gold and silver, as well as maybe how it's been suppressed, because ancient civilizations would wear gold as a way of obviously looking pretty, but apparently would use it to for alchemy. It's most malleable, like it was used to maybe slow down time and do ceremonies and things like this. So gold is obviously quite a powerful element. So can you help us understand a bit more about that?
So for me, gold is like, as a civil engineer and like somebody who's interested in like material science and all of that, like gold is a miracle element. If human civilization wants to expand beyond Earth and like have exploration of space, I like that can't be possible with gold the price it is, because I think I was telling you this last time. The astronaut visor that has that little gold hue, it's got a gold hue because it is gold. It's 50 micron thick of gold, so like basically nothing. Maybe 4 grams worth of gold on that visor. It completely eliminates all heat and radiation from the sun. Like if you nuke gold, it'll stop being radioactive like after 3-4 days. It's just inert, like it doesn't rust, like it's glorious. But if you like were to try to use it in construction at $2,000 US an ounce,
Yeah.
like you can't, or you can at like extreme expense. So it'd actually be good to see gold demonetized, so that we can actually use it as a material, because we've got something that's got its monetary properties and even better right now. So gold was, I was a gold bug for an extremely long time, and then I found Bitcoin, and like it's literally gold, but like better.
Yeah. And it's so much lighter.
Oh, much lighter. But like not just that. So Bitcoin does consume a lot of energy. So there is environmental impact associated with that. But like Bitcoin's energy use is effectively plug into the wall, and it's just depends on how dirty the wall is. If you're plugging into like a solar grid, then Bitcoin is emissionless. Gold, on the other hand, can never be emissionless. So all of the gold that gets mined in the world can probably fill your room floor to ceiling. That's it. Like it's not much.
Per year, you mean?
Per year. So 3,000 tons a year, which is 150 cubic meters. That's it. So that'll just fill your room. So a typical studio, in terms of like a studio apartment, in terms of cubic meter volume, is like 200 cubic meters. It's like 50 square meters or 60 square meters, whatever it is, and 2.5 meters to the ceiling. That's all the gold in the world. To get that out of the ground, you need like something like 100,000 Olympic swimming pools of water, 1,000 Great Pyramids of Giza of waste rock, like 1 billion tons of cyanide to leach the gold out of the rock in the water, and then a tailing dam to store all of the cyanide water. And in China, those dams break all the time. Just Google cyanide tailing dam disaster, like on Wikipedia, and it'll give you a list of them. It's all China. The cyanide dam breaks and it floods farms, uncompensated. So everything, you're never going to be mining gold in an open cut pit with an electric bulldozer. Like it's going to be running on diesel forever. Like the gold industry is never going to get cleaner, ever. Maybe there might be some efficiencies in mining extraction methods, but it's pretty much never going to get cleaner. Whereas Bitcoin, as long as the grid continues to get clean, it'll effectively be emissions free. And all Bitcoin miners deep down are environmentalists and chasing the cheapest electricity. So like one of the most used sources of energy for Bitcoin mining in the world now is hydroelectric and wind, because it's super cheap, and Bitcoin miners are always going to be chasing the cheapest energy, and eventually the cheapest energy is going to be renewable, and there's going to be so much demand for energy from the Bitcoin mining sector that the renewable sector will grow, and I'd say maximum by the end of this decade, Bitcoin will be running 100% renewable energy sources, not because it's the right thing to do environmentally, but it's because it's the right thing to do financially.
This is really interesting. So, okay, so we have something that's a solution for everybody, that's a solution also to the environmental devastation, destruction that gold and all these mining companies. So that obviously puts a threat into a multi-trillion-dollar industry as this shifts wealth. But then we're looking at, okay, so governments, economies transitioning. We're looking at like the fiat currencies. These are all kind of plummeting or being falsely inflated or whatever it is. So how do governments now? How does that impact governments? And aren't governments going to be like, hang on a minute, I don't want this to happen. This is going to shut down our game. this is going to shut down what we're doing. So what are the impacts on government, and aren't they going to put laws in place to stop this from happening?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is right, like that it is going to ruin the government's game. And you're probably right, like that they're probably going to try legislate against it. But it's been 12 years, their pants are down by their ankles, and I reckon by the time they figure it out, it'll be another 50 years. And by then it'll be too late for them. You know, like the government, they just don't seem to like care or take it seriously, which is great. The academy doesn't take it seriously. You try to go to any university in the world to try to apply for a PhD in Bitcoin research, and they'll all laugh at you, despite all the professors being poor and Bitcoin almost now being a $1 trillion tech. No interest, because like there's especially if you're, from an academic background, like being deep in the academy or being deep in the government, just understanding Bitcoin would be dangerous to your mental health, because it challenges your worldview and shatters it. Because you're used to the idea that if one of my banker mates messes up, I can bail him out. We can save jobs. All I have to do is print money, bail him out. He can stay rich, and the poor workers that vote for me at least won't get fired. But now their money's worth less. But that's no skin off my nose. Next year I can vote myself a 10% salary increase, which the politicians seem to do very regularly. I think they just voted on a salary raise a few months ago as part of the COVID relief budget.
Oh, that's seriously so bad. And I actually remembered when Alex and I used to go into universities, we used to, put on talks and things like that, and for them to come and listen, the university students. Number one, they still thought fiat currency was backed by gold, which I was astonished to hear. I was like, okay, you're studying economics and finance. How can you even think that way? Secondly, I used to laugh because I'd go into the university and there'll be all these posters going from the staff saying, we do not support, you're welcome to go listen, but we do not support the talk that's about to take place in room X at this time. They wouldn't even state that it's Bitcoin or whatever, because it would spark too much interest, right, for especially the younger generation. But it was so good though, because every single person there, we'd pack out the room with over like 200 kids, and the amount of questions and challenges, and then we just kept pushing them back. But it's like you say, their whole minds like started to shatter, because they're like, everything I'm learning right now at university means nothing. And like it made them really second guess. So it was quite interesting to have that sort of experience, being able to go in there. But touching on that point, within governments, what if governments decided, okay, we're going to try and take out all of the mining facilities around the world? What would that mean for Bitcoin? Would it take it out?
It's difficult to say, because like nobody knows where the miners are. Like it's just anonymous. So like they like like if it was possible, it'd have to be done by like, so the way like the Bitcoin's like game theory is set up, unless you kill Bitcoin and mining in one fell swoop and kill it forever, it'll come back savagely at you, and it won't take long. So like arguably one of the best things that could happen to Bitcoin would be China banning Bitcoin and seizing all of the mines in China. Because even though that'd be like short-term pain for 6 months, that just means that in the future, we have no risk anymore of China shutting down mining. They've already shut down the mining in China, and we can proceed as normal in the other countries.
Yeah.
And because of the game theory, you'll start just getting opportunistic countries. So, has Bitcoin been banned in your country? Come over, 100 grand. I'll give you a passport, no tax on your Bitcoin. Just come and spend money. And you'll find a lot of countries have already started. All of the Caribbean islands have like visa programs now. Even like the first world, Portugal, you can buy residency there, and there is no tax on Bitcoin. So despite Portugal being a high tax, relatively like socialist structure, that's cool. Bring your Bitcoin, spend it. We love to have you.
It's crazy to
And so a lot of these, maybe as we're realizing, and every day it's like, oh my God, are they really saying that in the news? Is this really real, or is this fake news? You know, there's so many smoke and mirrors going on, you know, obviously understanding with the COVID thing. So you're saying some company or some governments might put on the news, oh my God, we're going to shut down Bitcoin, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Could they just
that's
be
actually happened.
Could they?
India's done it. Pakistan. So even though like Bitcoin is banned in Pakistan, like 3% of like the mining hash rate is based in Pakistan.
It's
And
just,
like same thing, like Iran, it's banned, but like I think Iran has like 4% of the hash rate. So like it's too hard to ban. It's literally plugging a computer into the internet.
yeah.
And if like if the government's on your tail, most of these mining installations aren't in like a brick and mortar like data center. Like they're literally shipping containers filled with Bitcoin mining units. If the fuzz is on your tail, just put them onto a truck and drive them to another site that has electricity and internet.
Venezuelans are actually doing that at the moment. So a few years ago, a lot of Venezuelans started to mine Bitcoin because they couldn't trust in their government anymore. I remember like the president there actually had a money printing machine in his house in the basement.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even trust their own government. And that was really sad for them. But what ended up happening was, for the government to try and get them to start using, Venezuelan fiat, they started looking at whose electricity bills were going up to try and, go into their homes and try and take their Bitcoin miners away from them. But exactly like Haas would do, as soon as they could get it, to a point where they could probably be in that threshold of, oh, we probably are going to get broken into now, or, raided, they just move their miners, So they were very, very lucky. Some people did get their stuff taken away, and, but the fact is that every single person in Venezuela, like most of their population, has looked to Bitcoin as the saving God. Like that's their savior right now. And that's what's keeping them afloat, because they can't trust in their traditional currency.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So yeah, it's basically whack-a-mole with like regulations. Now you could also have, for example, the UN single treaty on drugs. So the single treaty was, also back in the Nixon days, sometime in the late 70s. And it was basically, you're banning drugs in your country or you're out of the UN. So everyone in the world banned drugs. The single treaty still exists, but it is very loose now, because I think I can't remember what it was, 2011 or 2012, Uruguay legalized marijuana. And the UN like went up in arms. Oh, how could you, like the single treaty, this, blah, 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 blah. And like the Uruguayan president is like, don't talk to me, go talk to Colorado and California. And then like the single treaty is like no longer applied that strictly, because drugs are legal in America in most states now. But basically for the US to get, drugs made illegal so they could, pursue their Afghanistan war for the poppy in the 70s and all of that kind of stuff. So they were the main supplier. They basically said, you either ban drugs in your country or we're kicking you out of the UN. And like no one could talk to America. That's it. You just got to do what America says.
Yeah. So let's look at this. There's a finite amount. It's better for the environment. It's putting the power back in our hands financially. And so just to kind of clarify, so no one owns Bitcoin. Well, everyone owns it, but there's no one organization.
There's no one.
It's created by a white paper that was a group of just ultra smart people who created the code. And so can that code get changed or manipulated? And then what's the future of Bitcoin? Like what's
so the code can change. So so Bitcoin today is not fundamentally different at all to Bitcoin in 09, but there's been a lot of tech improvements. So the way the tech improvements work is through a consensus model. So coders, open source coders, code on Bitcoin. Like, I've got a great idea for Bitcoin. I've got a Bitcoin improvement proposal, BIP. So BIP 100, I reckon it'd be great, if Bitcoin could do this, and here's all the code that can make it work. That goes out into the open source on the Bitcoin, GitHub repository. Coders from all around the world get together, audit it, comment on it, go through a process. And after maybe 2 years, if everybody's in consensus that this is a good idea, the code is changed and an update is rolled out. If there's no consensus, and by consensus, like, you have to get over 90% consensus for a change to be adopted. If there is no consensus, like we saw in 2017, the code is just copied, changed, and forked away, and you have a new coin. So in 2017, Bitcoin forked into original Bitcoin, and it split off into another fork called Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash, people didn't want particular upgrade called segregated witness. I'm not going to get into the technicals, and they split off. And then the Bitcoin Cash community had a disagreement, and they split off into Bitcoin Cash Satoshi's Vision and Bitcoin Cash ABC, and they fork all the time. And a lot of the cryptocurrencies you see these days are literally copy pasted Bitcoin, change a couple of parameters, and relaunch. So if you wanted to launch your own, Bitcoin, very easy for you to download the source code from GitHub, change what you want to change, launch it, and the market will decide. If it's good, people will buy your fork. If it's no good, it'll just die. So yeah, it can be changed, but it's not easy to change. And if anyone were to ever propose a major change, let's make it 22 million Bitcoin instead of 21 million, that will never, ever, ever reach consensus. But, let's have a look at, compacting signatures, or something something very niche and technical that doesn't affect the economics of Bitcoin or take anyone's value. Those are typically easier to reach consensus, but usually it's a long, slow process that takes years. So the life cycle of a Bitcoin improvement proposal, some of them take 4 to 5 years, to be merged in to the code. So the developers and the communities understand that there is a lot of money at stake, money that is not theirs. And as a general point in Bitcoin, there's a motto: don't F with the money. That's when things go downhill. So the money is never effed with in Bitcoin. It's just little technical improvements, that might improve transaction output by 15%. Little improvements, little changes, but effectively Bitcoin will never ever change. It's got too much inertia. There will be no major fundamental changes. There's an upgrade coming later this year called Taproot, and there's lots of people in the community, myself included. We believe that'll be the last ever upgrade to Bitcoin. It'll just, in the future, it's just going to be impossible to get consensus anymore. So it's just getting too big.
So anyone can have a say in the shift in Bitcoin?
Yep. So long as you got a node, you have a vote.
And so
you just vote to what version you want, and that's basically it.
And so this sounds like it would be like voting from the people, like they call it a referendum, right? If we're going to change governments and things like that. So that's still the core of Bitcoin, which is fantastic because but
it's not a democracy either. It's not 51%. Like you need 90% consensus.
Yeah.
And so,
which is almost impossible now. Like there's just too many players.
So, but couldn't you have, looking at the governments of these massive structures today, you've got, the rich 1% of the 1% who kind of own the media and the mining and the, medical system and the education system. And they're kind of how I envision it, the puppeteers around how the world's going to be played out in this kind of play. And so different acts, in the legal system, there's different acts, and the judge comes out with a big wig. It's one big fucking act, and so it's one big play. And so, wouldn't that mean? Couldn't there be so many people corrupted enough to get into Bitcoin to then eventually be that 90% majority?
That would be the 90%
could they
of
hack
the population.
But couldn't they hack with bots or computers?
There's only one way for them to do it. Buy Bitcoin. And for those guys, I'll give them a special price. I'll sell you one for 10 million.
Okay, be too late.
Yeah.
And
so that's the thing. The only way to get in is to get in and put your own skin in the game. So if all these rich people put billions in to acquire like a big stake of Bitcoin, and everyone found out that it's elites that have acquired Bitcoin, everyone will just drop their Bitcoin and be worth nothing.
Yeah.
So it's a protection like mechanism. If somebody wants to say, there's a concept called a 51% attack in Bitcoin. So if you hold 51% of the mining power, there are shenanigans you can get up to. You can't destroy Bitcoin, but there are shenanigans you can get up to, like, double spending and whatnot. But to acquire 51% of the hash rate now, it's impossible because you can't fabricate mining rigs quick enough for it to happen. But let's just say it could happen. You'd need to spend, $20 to $30 billion on this equipment. And then once everyone's found out that you've got that equipment and are doing a 51% attack, Bitcoin becomes like worth zero. So you've just burnt like $30 billion.
I see some people talking about creating, like, if we really want to fix the world, we need to get rid of money. Like there needs to be some kind of exchange of, the bartering system or some.
I think you need to just get rid of fiat.
Yeah.
Money is a very important way to, like, it's almost the purest way to communicate. Like, what do they say? Money talks, bullshit walks.
Sure.
It's a very like effective way to talk. But like with Bitcoin, at least you've got a yardstick and measuring stick against which to measure your talking. Whereas fiat, you just don't know what you have. Like if I have 21 Bitcoins, I know that I have 1/1,000,000th of the Bitcoin supply. I know that for a fact. If I have $1 million, how much of the supply of Aussie dollars do I have? Like nobody knows.
Yeah.
How many US dollars are there? Like nobody really knows. Gold also, nobody really knows.
Right.
Whereas with Bitcoin, like, this is it. I've got 21 coins. I have 1/1,000,000th of like the buying power on the network. Or, if I have one coin, I've got 1/21,000,000th. Like I always know what I have. So like when we communicate, goods and services, like there is a benchmark, or there will be a benchmark for fairness. So right now it's diluted because lots of people don't think like, 1 Bitcoin equal 1 Bitcoin. They think, 1 Bitcoin equal, $35,000 US, or 1 Bitcoin equal whatever. But once we get rid of like the fiat yardstick, I think Bitcoin would be a very, very healthy money and medium of communication and exchange.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just quickly touch on that? And then when you look at the history of money, right? We used to talk about this a lot. One of the things is we've always had money, just it came in different forms, right? So, the people in the forest might used to trade with shells. and that was their form of money. But spices.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
usually something useful. Like
yeah.
I've got beef and I need to cook it up with spices, but I've also got some, I don't know, bamboo weave baskets that I made, like that you might like. And like that probably works, could work at the community level if you have maybe 200 people, but probably difficult to scale it past that.
Business. You do business, I guess, with that. You know, like nowadays, whereas like we were saying back in the day, we definitely would have been able to have done that. But the bad thing about that is, like, let's say, for example, you are creating baskets, and then you go to a town that's 100 kilometers west, and then everybody's making baskets. So then, like, your basket becomes worthless. Yeah. So then it becomes like, okay, cool. Well, now I have to find something else to make it more valuable to these people. Whereas Bitcoin, it could be something that's, you know, worldwide. Everybody has access to the internet, so everybody has access to Bitcoin. And it's that one thing that's around the whole world. Whereas, and it's the same value as it is in Australia to what it is in South Africa to Venezuela. Like, it's all the same value. Whereas, you know, if I took them a hula hoop over there, there could be 1,000 hula hoops kind of thing. So that's the difference. Or Venezuela money would, I think like the South African rand is 12 rand to $1, you know? So when I go back home, I feel like a billionaire. But when we came over here, like, we thought we were rich, and then we came here and we're like, holy shit, we're so not where we thought we were. Right? So then it's just such a big mind shift all the time. Whereas Bitcoin always also takes that out and allows, that's where also fairness comes into play.
It's fair. It's a fair playing
field. Less confusion.
And so moving forward, you know, there's been companies out there, or these coins that have been quite like scams. Some of them are called.
Look, some aren't scams. I'd say maybe 10% of them aren't scams. But what they are basically just dumb startups printing shares and selling shares. And we're going to launch this great blockchain in 3 years' time, and the price is going to pump. Trust us. Here's our ICO. So some of them, like, you read the white paper and you say, like, this is a scam. And then you hear an interview from the founder and say, well, it's not a scam. Like, this guy's just delusional, and it's just going to end in tears for his investors. Like, I don't think this guy is actually out to rob his investors. He just got a really shit idea. And, you know, thanks to Ethereum and ability to do ICOs on Ethereum, he's like, how about I sell shares in my shit idea? Which I think is great, but like realistically is a shit idea. Like, it's not going to work. And that's the majority of like the altcoins.
What does altcoin stand for?
So, you know, an alternative coin to Bitcoin, basically. So for example, like the second biggest one, you know, is Ethereum, which is a smart contracts platform. Not a scam, I don't think. I'm not invested in Ethereum.
Not anymore.
But without Ethereum, you can't launch your scam.
Right.
So all of these, you know, I have a great idea, here's my ICO. Like, none of that would be possible without Ethereum. So you need Ethereum to generate, you know, your smart contract or token or whatever it is, you know, which is a good enough idea. Like, the vision is good, the intentions are good. You know, we want to create a smart contracts platform to, you know, unlock innovation and startups and all that. And it sounds fantastic, but it's a minefield of just unintended consequences. And, you know, 90 to 95% of these altcoins like end up like a complete like ruin, like 100% loss. And the other 5 to 10%, you know, are down at, you know, 90% loss. So all of these coins, like, they've recently, you know, not all of them, only a few, maybe 5, you know, or 10 of them have, you know, recently reached their all-time high again, you know, in fiat terms, but all of them over the long term are down between 50 and 99% against Bitcoin. You know, and the few that work like are rare, and by the time you discover them, they've already pumped their 10,000%, and there's no point really investing them, any further.
So maybe in the short term, if you're looking for a bit of a gamble,
you call it a quick pump and dump.
Quick pump and dump.
Look, for in the short term, like it is possible, but like you have to be the pumper, or you have to be paying a pumper to be in their paid group for him to message you, "We're pumping."
Yeah.
Like, get ready to sell it like this number.
Got it.
So like, there's lots of scams and fraud. Like it's heavy duty manipulation, very, very low liquidity. So even a $1 million investment can like really push the price around, 15, 20%. Whereas to do that in Bitcoin, you probably need $1 billion, these days, to significantly really like make the price move. So, for a gamble, maybe. If you're living somewhere in like the Cayman Islands or something, I'd say, yeah, might as well gamble. Because if you get lucky, at least there's no tax. Because if you are gambling in these coins, you don't want to be holding them for like more than a week. Like you're holding fire, holding these coins. And if you only hold it for a week, you're up for 50% capital gains tax. So it's not even worth gambling. It's just better to just make yourself a budget and slowly save in Bitcoin, like on a weekly basis or a daily basis. And it's effectively like Bitcoin really is a movement. Like the more people that decide to just start saving money in Bitcoin, like the bigger and more unstoppable it gets. And now it's gotten to the point where, there's $700 billion of power behind this network. Like it's not going to be easy for people to crush. There's already lots of billionaires that now hold Bitcoin. So I think the biggest personal holding after Satoshi is Chamath Palihapitiya, early investor in Facebook. He is a billionaire, currently running for the governor of California. He wants to get rid of Gavin Newsom, and he's holding 1% of the supply. He's got 210,000 Bitcoins. He bought them in 2014. Michael Saylor has 75,000 Bitcoins. So we're talking big institutions with big lawyers. So if the government comes to like try ban Bitcoin, like Chamath will just go to the Supreme Court. He'll pay a couple of lawyers $5 million, and the Supreme Court will say freedom of speech. Of course, you're not allowed to ban Bitcoin.
And
like there's moneyed interest now. Like it's too strong. Like
it's too strong.
Like politicians are like are very susceptible to capture and donations. So like now there's like so much money involved and so many individuals, like it would be probably politically untenable in America for the US government to like try ban Bitcoin. And if they do, I'm sure Michael Saylor and Chamath and the hedge funds that have recently bought in, Jack Dorsey, they'll just go straight to the Supreme Court and say, First Amendment right, this money is communication.
And so moving on, and if there's really one thing, and maybe I'd love to ask you guys, if there's one thing that everyone could leave here knowing about Bitcoin, what would that be? For me, I feel like looking out from a newbie, a super newbie, just a couple of months kind of in this space. So here's the lawnmower next door. Is that crypto? I thought Bitcoin was a crypto, but you kind of have, in the crypto space, you've got Bitcoin, which is the purest and the original, and then everything's designed off that, and all the scams come away from Bitcoin. And so that would be one thing, is that the difference between Bitcoin, when people are like, oh, I'm getting into crypto, well, oh my God, be careful, because there are so many scams. And are you getting into Bitcoin? Okay, well, if you're not getting into Bitcoin, then here's some resources to go away and have a look at. But if there's one thing everyone should know from your understanding about Bitcoin after listening to this, what would that one thing be, Ass?
if you want to protest effectively and change the system and change the planet and move away from our culture of consumerism, capitalism driven consumerism, media driven unhealthy diets and fads, if you just want to protest to all of that and tell everyone to shove it, really the easiest thing you can do is just join the Bitcoin army and start up a Bitcoin savings plan. So there are plenty of ways to do that now in Australia. So one of the ways is Chantelle will probably tell us about is an app like Amber, where you can set up daily responsible daily recurring buys. That's purely app based, and there's a Bitcoin only exchange for more advanced users. I'll plug them here. Bitaroo.com.au also allows for daily, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly buys. Look, Bitcoin is scary. It is volatile, but it's upwardly volatile. And when you do take the daily buying approach, so I'll give an example. So if you bought at the top of the price when it was $20,000, and I'll respond to Tracy here. Yes, Bitcoin can absolutely crash. In 2017, it went to $20,000 and then crashed to $4,000 twice. So 4,000, then back up to 13,000, then back down to 4,000. But in between those peaks and troughs and mania times was just a nice steady flow. So if you bought every day from the top, $10 a day, starting that day that it was at 20,000, 2 years later, you were still up. You would have doubled your money if you bought every day. But if you put all your eggs in one basket on that day at 20,000, 2 years later, you would have been down 50%, because it was only $20,000 for a day. Not even a day. It was maybe 15 minutes. Like it hit 20 grand, and then it crashed to 6 grand, and it stayed there for months. So every day you were saving little bits and pieces, at $6,000, $6,000, $6,000, and then when it rips up to 10,000, you've made a 50% gain, and instead of being down 50%. But to more of Tracy's questions, you can get a Bitcoin card. So if you do want a Bitcoin card, check out bitcoin-babe.com. That's MJ. She's based here in Sydney, and she does Bitcoin debit cards that you can load with up to $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. So you can use. So that might be an avenue for you to go. And I missed the last question she said Tracy had before the card and after the crash questions.
I said do most places accept Bitcoin? Like, can you pay with Bitcoin?
So you can, but
yeah.
My hand wavy response is why would you want to spend your Bitcoin?
Well, so
it's just why would you want to spend your shares? Why would you want to spend your gold? So Bitcoin for now, while it can be spent, probably not for spending just yet. You'll have good prime time to spend in 3-4 years. So for example, I don't plan on spending any Bitcoin until Bitcoin, a few $100,000 each.
Break it down.
Now, while I have Aussie dollars, I just spend my Aussie dollars because they're melting. So if I can drop those, they're hot, that's what I'll choose to do. And
so
there will
put
definitely
your money into Bitcoin, do you see it as a safe?
Yes.
No,
so for me, it's a savings account, but also at the same time, highly useful for private transactions. So let's say I wanted to get a VPN membership for a year. For a VPN, I'm a dissident, let's say, and I need to be able to use the internet discreetly without anyone being able to trace that I've, paid $100 for a VPN. So a VPN is a virtual private network. So a lot of people now use VPNs. So in Australia, if you want to pirate movies, from the Pirate Bay or whatever it is, the government has their website blocked. You can't use the Pirate Bay. If you're in China, you can't use the internet. But if you have a VPN, a virtual private network, that unlocks the internet for you. It gives you like a fake IP address, so nobody knows where you're using the internet from, all that kind of stuff. But if you pay for a VPN membership with your credit card, like that might be able to get traced back to you. If you're doing, proper like dissident stuff. So let's say you're a pro-freedom protester in Hong Kong. The stakes are literally life and death if the government finds out you've got a VPN. So for stuff like that, you can spend your Bitcoin because it does something for you that your money, your fiat can't. Yeah. But for now, for me, it's just too valuable to let go while I still have, Aussie dollars in hand, that are melting away. I spend that. But I do have a little bit of, Bitcoin spending money. There's something in Bitcoin now called the Lightning Network, which is a second layer on top of Bitcoin, which effectively offers instant and free micropayments. So I could pay you 1 cent and that'd be free and that'd get to you instantly. Whereas if I wanted to send you 1 cent on Bitcoin now, right now, because we're in the middle of mania, it'll probably cost me like $6 in transaction fees. And you probably have to wait about 3 hours to get it. Now, this isn't a problem if I was sending you $1 billion. $6, is nothing. And half an hour, also nothing. But for sending you a cent or, $1, Bitcoin is not the best to use, which is why they developed the Lightning Network. Now, on top of Bitcoin, a lot of people are using Lightning to pay, but it is still quite niche. Now, with PayPal in America enabling crypto, I imagine that you might be able to spend your Bitcoin through your PayPal account soon enough, but not PayPal Australia. So for now, only PayPal USA. So PayPal USA, you can buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. You have to keep your crypto on PayPal. They don't allow you to withdraw it, but you can then spend it with merchants on PayPal if you want. So yeah, that's another thing a lot of people don't know is that you can buy Bitcoin on PayPal only in America for now.
That's huge.
And I think the thing stopping it from working in Australia is you need a special. So PayPal would have an AFSL in Australia, and Australian Financial Services license, because it is a payment network. But I don't know if they have all of the structures in place to be able to custody cryptocurrency through their company.
So these are awesome, guys, and please keep the questions coming. I'll check the Facebook Live in a sec for any more questions. So if you do have any questions before we wrap this up, please throw them into the chat. And I'd like to know what would be your one thing you'd like everyone to learn. Yeah. Is there one takeaway?
Oh, I just want to quickly touch on Hass's point. We actually do have one friend that made Bitcoin friendly. So Brisbane Airport is Bitcoin friendly. You can go spend anywhere there. There's streets in Brisbane as well that you can go buy pizzas with Bitcoin and things like that. But if you're, I guess, in the Bitcoiner or the hodler phase, like Hass and myself, I would personally say, I don't want to speak on behalf of Hass, but I would personally say don't spend it. I don't think it's ready just yet to be spending. And that is because, you know, there is 21
Not just that, once upon a time, somebody spent 10,000 Bitcoin on a pizza.
So imagine like what it would be, you know, take 10,000 times $40,000 right now. That's how much they just bought that pizza for.
Yeah, 400 million. Yeah, 400 million bucks for a pizza.
Yeah. So this is kind of, you know, the long haul game. It's nothing that you want to be kind of getting into and then going, oh, okay, sweet, I'm going to start spending it. But to test it, like, yeah, maybe go buy a drink, but just know that potentially it could be worth X. So as long as you're ready and you're prepared for that psychologically, then by all means go for it. But also my one key takeaway probably would be, because Has touched a lot of the points that I'd say as well, is everybody says, okay, what happens to when Bitcoin hits that $21 million mining? Well, Bitcoin is divisible by 8. So then we go into Satoshis. So think of it, at the moment you have $1, then you have $100 note. So think of the little coins, this little Satoshi.
By 8 zeros.
By 8 zeros, sorry. Yeah, 8 zeros. That's what I mean by divisible by 8. Yeah.
So divisible by 100 million.
Yeah. So, you know, we have not an endless supply, but we have a lot of Bitcoin that we can actually eventually bring into, you know, society and start to utilize it as a currency. You're not going to be going, oh my gosh, there's 21 million Bitcoin. I need to buy one full Bitcoin. No, you don't. You can buy a fraction of Bitcoin. And that was one of the reasons, I guess, why we invented Amber, was purely to make Bitcoin one of the most easiest places in the world to buy Bitcoin, but to make it easy accessible for people in the everyday world that weren't into trading or into the Bitcoin space. So, you know, you could put $5 a day away, or you can put $5 a week away and you can set it and forget it, or you can just buy once. So my advice to you is just know that once we cap at 21 million, doesn't mean that that's the end of it. It still keeps going. You know, we can divide it. You can buy fractions. So don't think like you have to buy one full Bitcoin. And I would suggest holding on to it. But that's not financial advice.
So look, there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. I am of the belief that 1 million Satoshis, being a Satoshi millionaire, is going to be a very big thing in the future.
Yeah.
And to become a Satoshi millionaire today is, I don't know, $400 or something.
Yeah.
450.
Well, I think it was trading at 40,000 Australian dollar.
Yeah, so there you go, $400 for 1 million sats. So I think I measure my wealth in Satoshis. So you know, try to become you know, a Satoshi millionaire. So yeah. I think on Tracy's question on where do I think Bitcoin's going in the future? Well, currently, like, you know, Bitcoin is, you know, 600-700 billion market cap, and last year the world's governments printed $15 trillion. And there's something like, you know, between all of the wealth in the world, shares, real estate, options, there's something like, you know, $1 quadrillion. So I think, you know, Bitcoin could probably take 1% share of that. So 1% of a quadrillion is 10 trillion, which would be, you know, 500 grand a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But like, you know, lots of people say that like Bitcoin will just eat the entirety of the bond market, which is 300 trillion, you know, which would put Bitcoin at 10 million each.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a big number, but like, when Bitcoin are 10 million each, you're probably looking like the average house in Sydney is probably 10 million bucks. So do include for like inflation, because like inflation's been ripping at, you know, 10-15%, or asset inflation, at least monetary inflation has been ripping at between 10 and 20% a year, you know, for the past, you know, 30 years or so. So it only takes, you know, 3 years, at 20% year on year, to double 3 or 3.5 years. So we've had 10 doublings of the monetary supply since we went off the gold standard. And that's how we found ourselves going from talking about millions of dollars to trillions of dollars. Like if something doubles 10 times, it's a 1000x multiplier. So like it can't keep going. Like we've reached the point where it's no longer sustainable. If you have a look at the volume of money in America, it's just a hockey stick now. It's on the exponent, and it really can't last. And on Tracy's question, I think with fiat, it's going to be more of a suicide situation than Bitcoin killing it.
Yeah, I think we're about to enter a massive bloodbath as it is with the way that everything's going due to like COVID, Trump being taken out and all of these different things. I think the fiat currencies and also inflation with real estate and stuff like that.
It's becoming a joke.
Well, the real estate inflation is just downstream from the money printer. So we print all this money, we give it, to the investing class, and then the investing class just buys property.
Yeah.
And price goes up, and we can't buy it.
Yeah.
So it's the most rigged game you could possibly imagine, and a lot of people couldn't believe that the many could beat the few. But like GameStop, like even though it's a funny story, it's still a bunch of kids on Reddit have put a $13 billion hedge fund out of business. So all it takes is 10,000 forum users, each one slapping down 3, 4, 5 grand on 50x leverage, and you can take out a Wall Street firm. So they used to do it to us, the little guy, and now like the little guy is like finally getting one back on, and it's just a matter of walking away. The more people just decide to walk away from the fiat system and just adopt a new system, that like I said, it'll be more of a like fiat killing itself, as opposed to like Bitcoin killing it. Like Bitcoin is not interested in killing anything. Bitcoin just is. It's voluntary. You can come join, you can leave. Like it's not interested in, there is no one to make a coordinated attack. There's no CEO of Bitcoin that you can ring up and say, we need to pump it. It's just, it's nature sort of like in digital form.
Yeah.
It's nature in digital form.
I like that. I haven't heard that before.
Uncontrollable, does like what it'll do, exists, has fundamental laws that keep it together and allows you to understand it, but you can never really like understand and master and like dominate nature. You just maybe try harness it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have tried harnessing it and got wrecked.
Everybody makes mistakes with it, so I do advise, I have one more thing that
it's not advice, but you do advise.
Yeah, I don't advise. I never advise, just what I would do. I personally wouldn't go into investing into anything else in terms of other coins, purely because I don't want to support any of that behavior. For example, one of the first coins, funnily enough, was advised to me from probably one of the most biggest Bitcoiners now, to get into Ethereum before I got into Bitcoin. And I got into Ethereum and I was like, something didn't feel right. I ended up buying into Bitcoin. But why I keep trying to steer people away from Ethereum or give them the alternative of Bitcoin is the fact that they don't understand that once they're supporting something like Ethereum, they're supporting any other scam that might come up. And I don't want to make people's lives harder. I want to try and encourage them to have a bit more freedom with their life and a bit more ownership and accountability, and a bit more responsibility. So you really do your researches into the companies and the founders and everything else before you just go and invest in any coin. So that's my advice, because you just don't want to be one of those people that go, holy crap, it was at 40,000 last night and now it's worth 0.0001 cent. That's like my biggest advice.
Okay. And any other do's and don'ts that anyone should just kind of take on board? Yeah, the Bitcoin Times, is that something you want people to go away and read? Is there any resources, vlogs, blogs?
Well, I created a magazine called the Bitcoin Times, and Hass was one of my first writers actually for it. So if Hass is happy as well, I'll happily send it out to anyone that wants it. If you just
definitely. Yeah, my piece is about Bitcoin as a religion.
Yeah.
So
it's an awesome piece. It actually is a really, really awesome piece. So if anyone if they want to, just let me know and just get in contact with Zach, and I can
they just search it online?
Yeah, so you can go to amber.app, so amber.app, and I think it's in the learning section. You can go into the learning section and it will be in there. It's just on our website as well. So.
And for other people looking to, I guess, start in Bitcoin and kind of have an app that shows you the prices, and if you're wanting to invest in there, it's a lot easier than other exchanges. So it's, you just go through, you can set it up. You can even do it through Apple Pay now and just like
Not yet.
It's coming.
Yeah.
You do it through Apple Pay and things like that. So that's the Amber app.
Pay ID is active as of yesterday.
Pay ID is active.
That's what I mean,
Did you see that? I was like, Hass is going to be so happy.
Because I tried to, buy some Bitcoin or, this stuff years ago, and it was just so long. I had to write everything out, fax it all, take photos, verify all this stuff. And it was just like, and then it just stopped the process. So this would be something that I highly recommend, would be the amber.app.
If
you're in Australia.
In Oz. All right. In Oz. The Bitcoin.
Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter at Friar Hass, FRIARHASS. And my pinned tweet is the list of all exchanges all around the world where you can do an automatic savings plan.
Say that again. Can you spell it out? I'll put it in the chat. So
yeah. So it's FRIARHASS on Twitter. So my pinned tweet there is region by region. So I've got options in America, options in EU, options in UK, and options here in Australia.
And if anybody ever gets a chance, like even Google Hass or just listen to some of his talks, I was really lucky enough. He came and supported me at one of the Golden Alternative events when I had to go and spoke on stage. And I was just blown away at how Hass could speak and communicate the fundamentals of gold and what it's doing to society. And then like how Bitcoin is, the alternative, a better alternative. And the fact that he could do that in front of literally no joke. I think there was probably like over 100 people in the audience, like maybe like 200 or probably more. It's quite a big room. And all of these people had invested into gold. There was people from, somebody I was talking about from the feds. He was super high up in the feds, from the CIA, like all these people that were heavy into gold and things like that. And then they had like one little startup and Hass, like going, hey, invest in Bitcoin, and they've been in this for 40 years and telling them, what you're doing is encouraging negative behavior. And everyone was just blown away by Hass to the point where he got asked to come back the next year. So if you ever get the chance, please.
The only reason I didn't was because of COVID. They didn't have one this year, but I bet next year I'd love to go again next year. Because like the whole time you're speaking at these presentations and like you're kind of sweating, you're like, I hope the price is at least double before the next time they see me.
And I think I had made this poster, so I gathered all this data from like the last couple of years. So if you'd invested in Bitcoin from the beginning of time, invested in the FANG groups. The FANG group is like Facebook, Amazon, and all of those.
Netflix,
Google. I had all of the rates and like your investment return. Bitcoin was all the way, like, let's say up here, everything else is down here. And it was just so funny. Like the whole day, everyone was going, that's a lie. I'm like, no, I actually have data to back up that thing.
Amazing.
So it was awesome.
So any final comments before I kind of wrap this up? I'd love to ask one final question. If this is just a random one. So if you guys could send out a text message to everyone's smartphone right now with a word or a phrase or whatever you wanted to let everyone know right now one specific message, what would that message be?
For me, you might not be interested in the fiat wars, but the fiat wars are interested in you.
Mic drop. All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I can follow up on that. I don't even want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
That was insane. That was mind blowing. I'd probably just say, like, something to do around, you know, start stacking some sats to spark some interest for them to start Googling it and start learning about it.
Start stacking some stats, and that's
No, sats.
Sats.
Yeah, stack sats.
Stack sats.
So
Tongue twister, yeah.
Satoshi.
So that's the Satoshi coin. So start.
No, not a coin.
Part of the
Satoshi is
Bitcoin.
part of the Bitcoin. Yeah.
So yeah, part of the coin for Bitcoin, and start doing some research in that. So you'd send that to everyone to say, hey, research this.
No, I wouldn't say research. I would be like, start stacking sats. And then, you know, it's the same with like, you get all these billboards around Australia at the moment going, look up. And it's been one of the most genius marketing stunts. There's no website, nothing. It just says look up. And the amount of views that website has had is just incredible, because everyone's like, I don't get what this look up is.
Yes.
So that would be like
the curiosity.
Curiosity.
I like it.
Because if people are willing to.
Yeah, that's. And for another like Bitcoin story with the Silk Road, the reason the Silk Road blew up as like a, you know, the way it did is because there was a senator, I can't remember who, a US senator went out and like gave like a half-hour like talk to the Senate about like the dangers of Silk Road. And it was basically like an instruction guide on how to use the Silk Road. And basically like after that like press conference, like the Silk Road customer base like tripled. Like people are like, holy shit, I can buy drugs on the internet.
But do you know what's funny? Wasn't Trump allowing him to come out of jail now, the founder of that?
No, I think that was like one of the disappointments. So Snowden, Assange, and Ross, none of them got commutations or pardons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate, but look, one of these days, and it won't be that long, there will be a Bitcoiner president, and like Ross will be pardoned,
100%,
or at least probably not pardoned, granted clemency.
Yeah. So
they'll get him out of jail, but like it's a big faux pas to pardon like murderers or drug dealers or rapists or whatever, like even though Ross is none of those things, but like what he's been convicted of, I think like he was convicted of like some pretty like what the charges that the judge like threw at him were like very over the top, like the worst of the worst like charges. So a president wouldn't be able to do a pardon on that.
Yeah.
But they could get him out of jail. Like they would be able to do a pardon, but it wouldn't be popular. There'd be pushback. Like one of the things I heard was there was a threat like issued to Trump, like if you pardon Assange, like we will convict in the Senate.
Wow.
And I reckon they're going to convict in the Senate anyway. Yeah. But that's a story for another time. But either way, all of that cancer has to be excised and doesn't need to be replaced with anything.
This has been awesome. This has been insightful. Lots of learning, and I'm sure, you know, moving on from listening to this, everybody, that you guys can research, do your own due diligence, check in with Hass on twitter.com/FRIARHAS.
Yes, yeah. So Friar is the religious title. Satoshi being my hero.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And anybody wanting the Bitcoin Times as well, either jump on our website or just let Zach know, and I'll be able to send you a PDF.
Awesome. Awesome. Any final comments, before we wrap it up?
No, thanks for having us on. It's been great to talk with Hat. We've never done this before.
2 hour.
Actually, yeah, never recorded at least.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you again. And I think I've lost my voice. Thank you guys for talking. This has been
Thanks.
really, really interesting. You know, we're going to look back on this in 12 months time, 5 years time, 10 years time, and go, oh my gosh, remember that time we had that interview? And maybe Bitcoin will be $1 million a coin then. So that's going to be an interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for everything you do, Hass, and appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us, and thanks to also your great guests and the great questions.
Thank you. Bye, House.